In this example, we're going to look at the driving license database. And within here, we've got 5 tables. So the first off, we've got TBL driver person. So if we expand this, we can see the keys and we can see the columns. So this highlights, we've got primary key, and our primary key is the ID. Now what this table contains is a list of everyone who is eligible for a driving license. Either they have had one or they previously have had one. TBL driver license shows us everyone's license information. So just because you're in TBL driver person, that wouldn't mean that you actually have a driving license, it just means that you're eligible for one. So within TBL driver license, it shows us the access we have as a driving license, when we passed, when we expired, any points we have, and importantly, this column here links to ID driver person. So let's look at those two together. See, this column here and this column here are linked. So if I run those two as a join, it shows us everything on that license. Now let's look at TBL driver penalties. This is linked to ID driver license. Let's run those two together. Now everyone knows you can't get points on a license unless you actually have a license. So within this table, I might want to put a restriction on this table that says you can't insert into here unless you exist in here, because you can't apply apply points on someone's license if they don't have one. So that is a primary case for a foreign key, which we have here. SQL Server is now going to say, whenever you insert into here, it's going to say, hang on a second, let me check this table. Let me check the ID of this table to check you have a license. So I'll grab this code here, and we can insert into driver penalties, and this is going to insert. We can see here this is our primary key. So this one won't be inserted. This will be an automatic seeding. This will be an automatic seeding number. It's the ID driver license, which is going to be this. It's how many points we have. These are the points, or when the offence took place, and this is the penalties. That's fine. Let's have a look in here. That's absolutely fine there. Now what happens if I change this and I say my ID driver license is going to be a 4? That one should also work, because we can see in here we've got an ID value 4. Now if I try to insert value 5 into there, there'll be a restriction on here and it will fail. The insert statement conflicted with the constraint. Then you scroll along and SQL Server gives us a vaguely good message. It's in there, it's in this table, column ID. Now I can prove this point because I can take my foreign key here within TBL driver penalties, and I can get rid of this, and I can insert that. Let's have a look again so we can see the values before we do it. ID driver license, maximum number's 4. Insert into there, and now it lets us. And if I wanted, I could do number 50 in there and insert whatever I want. So in theory, the person with ID driver license 5 has got 3 penalty points, but we can see here there is no person with that license. So what these keys ensure is that the links between the two tables aren't broken. We ensure that we have integrity between those two tables. In this case, SQL Server is going to check one table prior to inserting it into another. So how do we create a foreign key? Nice bit of syntax, which I'll copy here. So we're going to alter the table. We're going to alter. Let's have a look at TBL driver penalties for the minute. We can see that in here there aren't any foreign keys. So I'm going to tell SQL, this is the table I want to alter. I'm going to add my constraint, which is going to be the name of the foreign key. So this is what I'm going to call it. The foreign key is going to be ID driver license. It's going to be this here. And I want it to reference TBL driver license, and I want it to reference the ID column. So I'm saying you have to exist in here before you can go in here. So run that. And that runs perfectly. So if I refresh this, we can see our foreign keys there. So now if I go back and I insert into TBL driver penalties, that 50 ID example we did earlier, it's going to fail, it's going to stop. Now an interesting thing does happen here. I can delete this key. And SQL Server will now let me insert into there, as we can see. I've got ID 50. If I run this syntax again, it's not going to let me. And so the smart ones amongst you will know the reason it's not going to put a key on there is because this value does not exist in here. So if you've got stuff in a table and you want to add a key to it afterwards, you're going to have to cleanse some of this. You're going to have to update it and you have to make sure everything's correct prior to doing that. So let's remove that record for now. Let's do a delete from TBL driver penalties, where ID driving license is 50. Now let's add it, and now we can no longer run this. So look at these two records together again, and there we have that. Now how else can we see how to create foreign keys? Now with any table, we can right click on them, script table, we can create it. And what SQL Server will do will give us our initial create table statement where it adds our primary key, and it shows us down here, we've got alter table, and it adds our constraints. So we can see all the syntax there as well. And we can also come down here, can right click, script the key and create two, and it just gives us the foreign key that we want. So that's everything in this example. The main thing we want you to remember here is we've got TBL driver person, which is always going to be our parent table. We've got TBL driving license, which is our child table of TBL driver person, and TBL driver penalties is also a child table of these two. That's how it's often referred to. So any questions, hit me in the comments and I'll get to you as soon as possible.